Well, hello, friends. I hope you're having a great day today. It's good to be with you on this Monday as we start a brand new week of Take 5 devotions. I hope you're believing God for good things today and all week. And I promise you, if you'll just put your trust in Him, God will bring you to the winner's circle at the end of the day, because that's how He operates for His people. So I think you know what we're talking. Let me say this before we get started. I apologize if I sound kind of croupy or something like that. I really was not feeling good yesterday. I felt terrible after church yesterday morning. I don't know what it was, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I apologize in advance for the way that I may sound or look as far as that goes. So we're dealing with the subject of faith. We're coming from Hebrews chapter 11. And we've just entitled this series we've been in Living by Faith, because that's what God intends for us to do, to live each and every day, not just the days. Let me change that. Each and every moment of our life by faith. That's what God intends. And so that's what we're striving to learn, is how to truly live by faith. Faith is something that's intended to be an everyday occurrence in the life of a believer, yet it seems to be something that we only put into action when we find ourselves in need. But if we would live by it every day, we would find ourselves more accustomed to faith when those hard-pressed needs came into our life. The same faith we're saved by is the faith that we're supposed to live by every day. You're not saved by one and healed by one and delivered by one and blessed by another. It's the same faith, and that's what God intends for us to walk in every day of our life. Hebrews 11 is a great example of a collection of the lives of people that when you go back to the scriptures and you study their lives, you see faith at work in their life just day after day after day and moment after moment. And you see God validating and working in accordance to their faith. Now from Hebrews 11, we started this series back in December. I don't know, 6-7 weeks ago, however long it's been, I really don't know. And we've talked about most of the individual characters from Hebrews 11. We've talked about Abel and Enoch and Noah. We've talked about Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Jacob and Esau, Joseph. We talked about Moses. And there's one singled out character that remains for us to talk about, and that is Rahab the prostitute, who lived in the walled city of Jericho. And so that's what we're going to talk about this week. We're going to talk about the faith that Rahab had to make the God of the Hebrews her God, and the faith that Israel and Joshua had to have to conquer this city and see those great walls come down there at Jericho. So that's what we're going to talk about this week. So let's pick up with Hebrews 11:30 and 31. It says, by faith the walls of Jericho fell after the army had marched around them for 7 days. And by faith the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient. Now, if you can picture Israel coming up to the Jordan River, they're ready to go into the promised land. They've been waiting 40 years for that first generation who was rebellious and disobedient. They've waited for them to die. And you've got to know that this group of Israelites, they are more than ready to cross Jordan and take the promised land. Canaan was the land that they were going to have to conquer by faith. It wasn't something that they were just going to bring their luggage and move into. They were going to have to conquer this land by faith. As a matter of fact, Deuteronomy 9 and verse number 1, Moses told Israel that they were going to go into this land and they were going to dispossess the land of the inhabitants. They were going to have to face nations and people that were greater than them. They were going to have to face people that had cities that were fortified up to the heavens. And Jericho was the first one that they were going to have to face. Jericho was the doorway to the promised land, and it looked like a very formidable opponent. The walls of Jericho loomed large over that Israelite camp there in the valley. That city appeared that it was ready for battle. From the inside walls, the people must have surely watched and looked down as Israel crossed the Jordan and then set up camp within eyesight. When you hear someone talking about the ancient city of Jericho, the first thing that comes to mind, most people anyway, are those giant walls that surrounded that city. A lot of historians agree that these walls were structured on a three-tier plan. The first tier of the wall started with an earthen embankment that ran from ground level upwards. And then on the top of that embankment was a stone retaining wall. And then the second tier began. The stone retaining wall stood 12 to 15 feet high on top of that embankment. And then on top of that retaining wall was another wall made of mud bricks that was 6 feet wide and 20 to 26 feet high. And then on the other side of that double wall, the embankment of earth continued going up. And then there was the third tier on top of another mud brick wall that stood there. At the base of the walls of Jericho, to the very height, was about 40 to 46 feet there. And so when the Israelites looked at this, they must have thought that this was an impenetrable city. It actually, the way it was laid out in steps with that elevation there from a distance, the walls of Jericho looked as high as 10 stories because of the way it was laid out. Now, they weren't 10 stories, but it appeared that way, and that look of 10 stories is what caused that other generation to turn around and hightail it back into the wilderness. Now, 46 feet's not nothing to sneeze at. That's a mighty big wall, but they definitely weren't 10 stories. Now, that would cause us to come to this understanding today that when you begin to follow God's purpose, there's always going to be a Jericho standing in the way. There's always going to be a Jericho that you've got to go through and go over. That's the doorway into the promise that God has for you. And can I tell you something? From a distance, the devil always knows how to make it look bigger than what it actually is. And many people will not move forward with their purpose and destiny in God because they just don't feel like that they can conquer the Jericho that's standing in the way. I've got good news though for you, friend. We're going to find out this week that Jericho was no match for the God that had called the Israelites and brought them to this point and promised them that great land. And there is no Jericho standing in your path that is a match for your God. The same God that brought the walls down for Israel will bring the walls down on your Jericho so that you can go in and fulfill the plan God has for your life. Well, hey, it's been good being with you today. I look forward to being with you tomorrow on Tuesday's edition of Take 5. Until then, God bless you. Have a great day. Remember, friend, trust the Lord. He will never fail you.